Welcome to the Weekend Geek. You saw our fun little intro that may or may not have played sound or not. And this is our current thing that we're in testing for. We're trying to figure out what we want this to look like and how we want this to feel. But my vision for this is that it is a live weekly geek news, nerdy news show where we're able to get together and talk about the things that we love, the things that we're passionate about, and also bring in some of our level 2 people. Those are people within the community of Checkpoint Church that have stepped up to say they don't only want to be served by Checkpoint, but to also serve alongside Checkpoint. And so I want to bring them in. And sometimes it'll be one or two. I don't think I'll go more than three. So it'll be up to four of us in a chat on here talking about the geeky things that we have and that we love. We're going to try to keep it within like a 30-minute realm. That's what my goal is. But there are a lot of fun little segments and fun little things for us to talk about and discuss. And we're just going to get right into it. But hey, the chat is active, so feel free to engage. We'll let this be live because I want it to be live. And if we wanted to pre-record it, we could pre-record it. But I think it's more fun to have the chat interacting, have people weighing in as well. So we're going to start off all these episodes with the exact same question. On our Friday Discord question of the day, we always ask, what are you going to watch? What are you going to play? What are you going to read this weekend? And sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you set goals for yourself and you end up sitting on the couch and doing not much of any of those things. Sometimes you get real busy. So we'll just start off with the question and then the response to our Friday question. What did you watch, play, or read this weekend? What actually wound up happening? So you can see that question already pinned over in the chat if you're on our Twitch stream, or if you're watching this as it's been edited on YouTube, let us know down in the comments below. What did you end up watching, reading, and playing this past weekend? I will start for today. I played Fire Emblem Engage. I have officially gotten to the point of I'm past the tutorial. I'm into the real story, and I'm just not sure. I'm at the point that I'm at 25 hours, and I think I'm going to keep pressing forward. I'm going to really try and make it work. The story is not it, but the gameplay sure is. I will say I read a lot of reviews saying that the characters were boring, and I don't think that's true. I don't think they're actually that bland. So I'm going to keep going, but we're at 25 hours in, and it took about that long for it to get interesting to me. If you liked Three Houses, you're really not going to like this game. If you liked the classic Fire Emblem, then I think you got a chance. I'm a big M. Night fan. I love M. Night Shyamalan. I love him. Even though he's had a lot of stinkers, as many stinkers as I love the twists. I love the movies. And so I watched Knock at the Cabin, and then I fell down an absolute rabbit hole of learning about what Knock at the Cabin was, where it came from. I discovered that it's actually a book called The Cabin at the End of the World, and I think I prefer the movie version over the book version. I haven't read the book. I just read the plot line or whatever, the synopsis online, because I was like, what are the differences? And once I discovered the differences, I get it. I don't think I like it as much. And I caught up with Chainsaw Man. So I'm now officially caught up with Chainsaw Man. And I got to say, after Chainsaw Man, so there's two arcs of Chainsaw Man. After Chainsaw Man Arc 1 wrapped, I really haven't gotten back into it. So how about you, Stain? What have you watched? What have you played? What have you...
Yeah, I didn't read anything. I did play some more Last of Us 2. Last of Us 2, I am just into the second set of Seattle Day 2. So how long's that game even been out? Because I'm trying to avoid spoiling, but anybody who's played that knows that there's you go through Seattle in 3 days and then you do it again. I'm on the second half of the game, and I really like it. I liked the first one. This one is harder in terms of the story itself. Tough. It's a tough one to get through. Not because it's bad or anything, but because it's especially the second half, because I know where it's going, or at least I know up to a point where it's going. It's fun to see how all the things that I've already done in the game are going to have an impact or have had an impact. And it's tough, but my son wanted to watch me play a little bit. And I was so glad that I told him no, because there's a scene with Abby and Owen in that near the end of that Seattle Day 1. And I was like, whoa, Lord, glad that's definitely not a child friendly scene. And so played that. I've been watching through CSI Vegas with the new version with my wife. So we're about halfway through what's current on season 2. And I also have been trying to make my way through Star Trek: The Next Generation in order for the first time. I'm in near the end, I think, of season 3. So that's what I did this weekend.
on. And I'm seeing some things in the chat. We've got some people playing Immortals Phoenix Rising, reading Lore Olympus, one prequel, which I didn't even know existed. I hate that I missed that. So at the end of the show, we'll go over like games that are coming out in the next week. And I don't know if that was just a sleeper or if I just totally missed it, because I did not know that the Backbone prequel came out this week, but I'm very excited about that. I enjoyed that game. But yeah, lots of good stuff. I'm interested to see how many more people end up going back and playing through like Tlu and Tlu 2. I hope that a lot of people don't play Tlu 2. I hope that they either see how the show changes it, because maybe it'll be better. I hope, as far as like a lot of the things that they've done so far. And I don't want to get into like a spoiler cast on season 1, but I feel like a lot of the show has not been more hopeful, but more hopeful. It's just been a little bit better of a like thematic storytelling as opposed to just like the pure depravity of the game. And so I'm very interested to see how they change season 2 since it's been approved. And hopefully some of the changes might make it a little bit more stomachable. They'll really have to make it more stomachable, I think. I don't know if they can go as brutal, although.
Oh, sure.
So
I don't know though. I mean, if you think about Tlu 2 and how that starts off, I was gonna put it in the chat in the Discord when you posted the spoiler, the meme of having cast Abby. I was like, I
Right.
think Negan would be a much better, would have been a better for that. They've shown worse,
Right.
so I think they could do that.
It's going to be interesting. We've got an interesting, exciting year ahead in video game adaptations and how all that stuff goes forward. Now we're going to get into our In Case You Missed It segment of the show. We're just going to go through some of the trending headlines, some things that we saw this past week, some of the big movements. And the first one was the biggest one to me, at least, and it was that James Gunn came out with all of the information about the DCU slate of movies coming up. So James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy, and so many other movies has now taken over kind of the mantle of DC along with Peter Safran. And the two of them are working together to figure out what the future of the DCU looks like, because it's kind of a mess. Some people don't mind it as much as other people really don't like it. I'm a huge DC fan, and I really, really have a soft spot in my heart for Justice League. They almost can't mess up Justice League. And so even as abysmal of a watch those were, I still loved them because they were my Justice League characters showing up on the silver screen, and I was thrilled about it. But some of the things that they announced officially, it was a huge slate. I thought so. They announced first off that The Flash is going to be the thing that's going to reset everything. So we're going to see a real revamp in the DCU. And there's Stephen Ridley. I just got done listening to the Moviga podcast, who also talked about this and did a wonderful job covering this. But interestingly said that The Flash is going to be like the greatest superhero movie ever told, which I thought was a really interesting thing that he would say that. Like, even if it is, that's really putting a lot of expectations on The Flash. Mentioned more about Superman Legacy, mentioned some stuff coming up with Batman, mentioned a telling of The Authority, mentioned a new focus on Damian Wayne as a part of the Bat family, who he claimed was everybody's favorite Robin. That is my least favorite Robin by a like literal mile. I do not like Damian Wayne one bit. Mentioned kind of a different look at Supergirl, which I think will be interesting and neat. I'm going to talk more about Swamp. Announced that he's going to be working on Creature Commandos, which is a really interesting series. If you've never read it, that kind of tackles some of the like famous movie monsters and puts them on kind of a Suicide Squad-esque team. Waller is a new show kind of coming out of the Doom Patrol team behind that product. The Lanterns is going to be like a True Detective style show. I'm excited because it's going to feature both Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. Paradise Lost, which is going to be supposedly a Game of Thrones style show featuring Themyscira and Wonder Woman and all that sort of stuff. And then the one that I'm personally the most excited about, I love Booster Gold. And so Booster Gold is going to be officially getting his own series, and I'm super excited for what that's going to turn out to be. I thought he was such a like in and out character in the Justice League, and I wanted so much more from him, but I think he's so goofy, and I love his like tongue-in-cheek style and approach. If they do him right, I think he could kind of be this versus Deadpool and could be a similarly successful character. So with those thoughts and highlights, what do you think, Stained? Are you excited for the future of DC? What were your like standouts, or what made you curious about this?
Yeah, so like full disclosure, I have always skewed more toward Marvel, but my favorite sort of comic character is the Joker. So like on a whole, I'm a Marvel guy, but like specifically, I love the Joker. So anything that deals with Batman or the Joker, anything like that, I'm always down for every version of it. I don't care. I do think I haven't really cared much about the DC universe as much. I've watched the League of Legends stuff. I've watched, I mean, not The Justice League. There we go. I'm watching Justice League stuff. I watched like I took my son to see Aqu when it came out. We loved it, like so it's not that I don't give it as much criticism as most folks have. I think probably because I just didn't care as much. I just enjoyed it for what it was. So the fact that they want to keep giving it love and reboot it and do all the stuff, I'm here for it. I think it's all gonna be fun. And I honestly never get into the weeds of criticizing superhero movies that much. I'm probably not good for that because I go into them just assuming they're going to be a superhero movie, and if it's just not complete garbage, I'm fine with it. I know a lot of other people take it way more seriously and get really upset that it's not like a cinematic masterpiece or whatever. But for me, I think it's all going to be good. I'm really looking forward to of all of that, probably Swamp Thing most just because it seems like something that would pique my interest in that universe. So I'm looking forward to seeing like kind of what they would do with something like that. And yeah, so but I think like maybe the story about Wonder Woman's homeworld, which I can never pronounce. So
Tough
I
one.
think that one will be good. Actually, I think it would all probably be good, and I think that it's seemingly a pretty coherent vision will help it, you know, moving forward. And I think using the Flash to reboot the whole thing and open up almost like not exactly multiverse, but yeah, basically, timelines and all that. I think that's just good because it allows multiple things to exist without people being all like upset about timelines and things like that. I'm all for that.
Yeah. Well, DC is like known for that in their comic series with New 52 and all that sort of stuff. So they're like
Hmm.
known for resetting the timeline. That's one of their shticks that they sometimes get memed on. So I think it's a good future ahead. And I think exactly what you said. Like the vision is there as long as they're able to actually bring it to light. That's going to be the telltale sign of like where they're going. I find it
Well,
really interesting.
that's been their issue though, right? From the beginning, DC, this every attempt so far they've all said we've got this vision and it's crashed and burned. So the question is, can they see it through? We can criticize Marvel all we want for where things ended up, but I mean, like there was if up to a point an art, that they saw through to the end. And I think as long as DC can do it, like as long as they can keep to the path, whatever they come up with, I think is going to be just fine.
Yep. Totally agree. I'm excited. I think it was interesting to me to see. I know, obviously, like Warner Brothers, HBO, like there's a relationship there, but I found it very strange that he kept making connections to other shows where he was like the Lost in Paradise is going to be like Game of Thrones, and Lanterns is going to be like True Detective. Which no, it isn't. Like, there's no way it's not going to be anything like True Detective. That's felt like such like a. Here are some other of our legendary shows. Wouldn't you like to watch this too? Which
Mhm.
I mean, I guess that's one way of getting your marketing and getting your like people's brains already excited and working. But we'll see. We'll see what they actually end up doing. The next thing on the trending headlines is kind of a weird one. I think it's really interesting the way that the internet works and the way that culture picks up on trends and topics and decides what to get outraged about. And this is already kind of out of the zeitgeist. People are already kind of over this. But last week, it was pretty huge how many people were upset with Mr. Beast, which Mr. Beast is just a huge YouTuber, the biggest, around kind of guy that does these larger than life YouTube experiments and doing all this big stuff with YouTube. And last week's big video was he cured blindness for 1,000 people, basically gave them a very specific cataract surgery. And according to one of the doctors or one of the optometrists on the video, actually it may have been a doctor, I don't know, but one of the people who was doing the surgery said that half of all the blindness, at least in the United States, was curable with this particular surgery that took about 10 minutes. And so this took a bunch of different directions of people being really upset about the fact that, first off, this isn't happening. And so they made it kind of a political issue, kind of a hot button political issue. Like, why is this not just covered? It's a 10-minute surgery. How is this not open for free to everyone that needs it? Other people got upset because they were like, oh, he's, a clout goblin and he's just somebody that's like taking advantage of this, curing 1,000 people thing and making this big, huge deal. I saw memes comparing him to Jesus. Where like Jesus cured blindness this many times, but Mr. Beast did it to 1,000 people in one 8-minute video. And like, of course, right, it is obviously a cloudy thing. Like that's just the nature of YouTube. He wants
Ah,
those views.
cloudy, no pun intended.
but it was really intriguing. So if you've not seen the original video, I highly recommend checking it out and giving it. You will not be noticed in our measly reach here, depending on how many billions of views this video ends up getting after all of the controversy is done. But I'm always curious to hear what angles there might be to view this thing. I mean, do you see any need for the controversy, or do you think this was just up in arms for the sake of being up in arms?
Yes to both. So I think people are always looking for something to be mad at anyway. So I'm not surprised when something like this comes along. And like honestly, when I saw it, when I was looking over the show notes and I saw that I watched the video, my very first reaction was irritation for all the reasons that you just said. But also, then I was like, hey, at least 1,000 people can see better now. So on the one hand, I totally agree with the folks who get upset that people do these social experiments or these altruistic things and then record it and get all these views. However, that is literally no different than like you take the social media element out of it, take the YouTube element out of it. I'll give an example of my hometown. There's a guy who is known as the anonymous donor. Everybody knows who the anonymous donor is, and he still goes by this nonsense, right? So we live in a world, we live in a culture that it's almost like no good deed goes unnoticed anymore because we require so much attention. So, like, yeah, could he have just given the money to the medical professionals and had it done without any clout? Sure, he could have, but like that's not what Mr. Beast does. Mr. Beast exists for a reason. My kids talk about Mr. Beast all the time, so let him do what he's going to do. I'm less concerned about him getting his clout than I am the good that actually comes from what he does or people like him do. That said, the story did hit kind of close to home for me because my father-in-law was blind. He had a blindness that he developed over the course of his lifetime. Retinitis pigmentosa was the disease he had, which was not curable. And so like watching something like this happen for folks who could get it fixed, they're still doing research to try and figure out how to cure my father-in-law's disease, but he never got to experience any of that. So I'm always going to side on the side of is the good being done? Honestly, is the good being done? And if it is, great. And I could care less what Mr. Beast gets out of it. Truly, I just want good to be done in the world. So
Well, and
that's
I
where
think
I
that's
fall.
that's the big point, right? Is what he could have done better in the video. Like he had 8 minutes and 56 seconds or however long it is, and he told the story that he wanted to tell and presented it in an entertaining fashion and got the whatever. He did the thing that got it as many views as it did. But here is what he didn't do that I would have done, and that is do more than a YouTube description. I did my due diligence and I researched, who is this? What is he doing? He did put it at the top of the description. It is there. It's called See International, SEE, like site, See International. And they are a fully accredited 5-star on Charity Navigator, 501c3 nonprofit curing blindness. So he didn't shout them out, but I will shout out See International. And that would be the step further that I think we should go. My question of like, what would I do differently if I had that kind of thing, or what should he have done that would have eliminated the controversy? There's nothing that would have fully eliminated it. Somebody would find, like you said, people just want to be mad. But to go the step further and to not only highlight that something's being done, but then also to shout it out and to say, how can we do something as well? There you go. That's how you can support somebody. So I don't currently have our like next checkathon, but maybe we'll do See International. We'll see. Like that's something we can put together as we figure it out. But if you want to support this kind of, I would call it a ministry in my context, but whatever you want to call it, if you want to support this charity, if you want to be a donor, if you want to help support this kind of miraculous thing, you may not have the ability to cure 1,000 people and then also donate 100K on top of that to this organization, but you can do something for See International. You can do something for the people around you. Your church can do that. So there you go. That is what you are able to do and how you are able to help. And I will shout it out. See International, SEE International is the way that you can take this to the next level. On much less serious news and much less notable news, we have the Nintendo Switch Online voucher system coming back again this year. So some of you may remember it last year if you're a Nintendo fan like I am. But basically, you spend $100 on the voucher and you get to buy two $60 games. So you're saving $20. It's a limited list of games. Depends on how you feel about it. If you want to save that $20, it's not going to always be the games that you want. They claim it's going to be games that are the newer games coming out and that the list is constantly expanding, but they don't do this for very long. They only do it for a very limited time each year. And it may be worth your money. It may not be worth your money. I do not have the list in front of me, H-Man, so I'm not sure what's included. Maybe Breath of the Wild. Definitely not Breath of the Wild 2. It will not be on there whenever it comes out. There's no chance. I think they already put the new Bayonetta, not Bayonetta 3, but like the Bayonetta where she's a baby. Like I think that one's going to be coming out and going to be happening already like at the discounted price. So they'll do like some announcements, but there's no way they'll do Breath of the Wild 2. Or excuse me, Tears of the Kingdom. Another one is Knockout City is shutting down. After their 9th season and 2 years, they're going to be shutting down this June. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, why in the world are we talking about this? This doesn't feel like that big of a deal. But to me and Buish, this is a big deal. 2 years ago when they started, that was like one of the first games that we played here on Check. And so it was a little bit nostalgic for me seeing that was going to be, and H-Man, that was going to be shutting down. So a very interesting thing. I think that a game as service model is intriguing to me. And it's always really weird to see one like shut down. It's always really weird to see one not continue going forward. And I feel like so many of them are supported from so high up that they're able to just kind of perpetually go on forever. And we just never hear about anything shutting down. So seeing one that actually has like a graceful exit after 2 years is really interesting to me. Did you ever play Knockout City?
I didn't. I hadn't even heard of it until I saw this link and I read the article. So I could see why it'd be nostalgic for y'all. What? If you live long enough, you live to see some of your beloveds die. So here you go.
I saw Paragon in the chat. That was exactly what I was thinking of. Paragon is a similar thing where it's like you have this games as service model that then just kind of gets canned. And you have this fan base that like loved it. Like I guarantee you there were still enough people in those servers in Knockout City that were like, this is my game. And now it's being taken away. So it's really intriguing to see these kind of games as service models continue to go forward. Our next story is another kind of fluffy one, which we can weigh in on if we want to, but some of you may have seen, I think it was on Stephen Colbert. I'm like 99% sure it was on Stephen Colbert, that Nick Offerman has not played video games in like 25 years. And the game that caused him to quit gaming was Banjo Kazooie. So that was the last game that he played. And he just had such an intense gaming addiction to Banjo Kazooie that he played it for 2 weeks and did nothing else and fell so down. He called it the dopamine drip. He fell so hard down the dopamine drip that whenever he came out on the other end, he was like, never again. So yeah, did you have any thoughts on that story in particular? I don't know how he played 2 weeks of Banjo personally. I guess just collecting those jiggies. And it was fun back in the day, but I can't imagine sitting down for 2 weeks of Banjo nowadays.
You know, not necessarily the game itself, but like when I was reading that article, I thought to myself, yeah, I totally get this because when I first started playing like EverQuest and World of Warcraft, both of those things literally consumed my life to the point of being bad for me. And I have fallen into game traps like that. Like honestly, recently here playing Genshin Impact, I realized that I had done so little work over like a 4-day period just playing that game that I haven't picked it up again since because I was like, if I start playing this again, I'm not going to get anything done. So I haven't completely walked away from like gaming, but I get it. I get the sort of you reach a certain point in your life where you have responsibilities and priorities, and you have to just say what is most important. And right now, my family and my career are more important than not having those things. And so I got it. I was like, yeah, all right, Nick, I get you. I hear you. Now, maybe that you could have picked a better game to waste your life on, but like, I wouldn't want that one to be the one that made me walk away from gaming, but right. I got it. Like I understood.
Yeah. Banjo's definitely good, but it's definitely like, I guess it's just so dated at this point that I'm like, I don't know. But you know, it was again, back in the day, whenever you were playing those games, that was all you had. And so Banjo was definitely like the first collect-a-thon that I remember, but I definitely expected WoW. I was like, for sure, he's going to say WoW. Like WoW is what everybody gave up so much their time to. That's going to be the one that's going to, absolutely dive into people's schedule. I did think it was really interesting, and this might honestly be a better topic for like a level 2 podcast, but I think that video game addiction is something really real and is worth discussing. And like, even Nick Offerman, who I think that he's great. I've been a big fan of his since Parks and Rec, and really an even bigger fan because I was a Will and Grace avid watcher growing up, and Nega Mullally was obviously a big deal in that show. and that's his spouse. And so always been kind of in his circle. But even someone as cool as Nick Offerman was like, yeah, I was down in my basement, like playing this game like gamers do. And I was like, that's not gamers. That stereotype is so prevalent.
No, but Nick Offerman is the literal embodiment of what I imagine a person living in their basement playing video games would be. If that stereotype were like universally true, he plays the part, man. So
right. Well, I mean, literally, right, as Bill living in the basement. So yeah,
Yeah.
it fits the role. He's got the characterization down. But I thought it was super intriguing and I'm very interested to hear more. I wonder if this will start like another trend of actors coming out about their gaming habits, because I always enjoy that.
I always,
At the
yeah,
very least,
I
that
like
would be
that
something
too.
that would be fun hearing about. Our final news article of today is a big one about E3. So E3 has been kind of slowly, you can call it descending for a while if you want to say that. But the big news came out this week from the ESA announcing that neither Nintendo nor PlayStation nor Xbox would be in E3 2023. And it probably feels like more of a big deal than it is. A couple of things that I wanted to note is that first off, you like have to know that the ESA is made up of a lot of organizations and a lot of people, and Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox are all a part of that. Like their voice is being heard in E3. There's just no reason for E3 to really be an expo anymore. It's in its name, but there's really no need in that. The team that took over E3 a couple years ago, I can't remember their name right now, but they are more known for like planning Comic-Con and working with PAX. And so what I think we're going to see in E3 as it kind of figures itself out is it's going to become less and less of an industry thing. And it's going to become more and more of a kind of commercial event like a PAX East, PAX West, or Comic-Con might be. It's really going to become for the fans instead of for the creators, for the innovators, it's going to take a step back because now all of these other organizations have their own directs, their own ways of presenting information, that there's simply no need for them to do this at E3 anymore. And so E3 is just having to kind of adjust its own expectations of itself. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just a change. I think it's just a shift. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think with, the big three kind of doing their own thing when it comes to, promoting their IPs and getting their creatives out there and stuff like that. I don't think I was always sort of peripherally paying attention to E3 around the time and seeing if there were any big announcements. But like we get so many announcements all the time now that it doesn't seem to be, there's no purpose for it in that way. Because those three, especially those big three, are going to do their own thing regardless. Like Nintendo, has been doing that for a while. Like they've had a presence there, but they haven't used that as their platform. So I don't think it's a big deal. I think the people who are very much involved and in some ways earn a part of their living based on E3 are probably much more impacted by that. And that's not necessarily taking away from that. But I think for the general public, for the general gamer, I don't think we're going to care much if E3 shifts to being something completely different than it has been.
Absolutely. And also worth noting is odds are we'll be getting a Nintendo Direct very, very soon. So related to why E3 isn't really what it used to be is because of things like Nintendo Direct that comes out like every February, every September. You always get this big bulk of Nintendo content. Last week's The Week in Geek was literally about the Xbox Developer Direct. So everybody else has just kind of figured it out. And so they don't really need them to be the expo. They don't really need them to be the release.
Now, I will say though, like for a person like me that doesn't pay attention to all of the Nintendo Direct, the Xbox, like all of those things, I don't pay as much attention because it's a bunch of different things. Having it all in one place was nice. But that said, I can get the info if I want it.
Well, and hopefully what better place to get it than here on The Week in Geek in the future. That's going to be our plan here.
100%.
So, yeah, that's the goal with this. Our next segment is no longer In Case You Missed It, but instead our To the Discord. This is where we'll go over submitted news on the Discord. If you would like to submit news to us so that we can cover it during the week, you can simply do !twig right now in the chat, or you can go to bit.ly/deartwig, and either one of those links will take you to the same document that'll let you submit news to us. We would love to cover that kind of stuff. We did not get any news submitted this week, except for Sneaky Pigs did talk about E3, and submitted that into our work doc. And then Kung Fu Carl also mentioned the DC thing over in the discussion channel from last week's Twig. So if you want to do that kind of stuff, if you want to let us know what's going on, please. And now we're going to go on to the next segment, which is At This Point in History. Oh, hang on, I need the voice. Let's see if I can find the voice.
At this point in history.
And we're going to talk about all of the cool things that happened throughout history on this particular day. If today is way too dang. If today is February 6th, what came out on February 6th throughout history? And I think rather than just having me read all of it, I can take games, you can take movies, or vice versa, and we'll talk about them. So what would you rather do, games or movies?
Well, I'll do games. I'll do games. Okay. You can do movies. Yeah. So on this day, Shadow of the Colossus, which I still have never played.
Yeah, this is the remake version, of course. Yeah.
I literally should have taken movies because I can't pronounce this next one. What, Chibi Robo?
Chibi Robo.
All right, Chibi Robo. Plug into Adventure. Sonic Heroes, which I do remember playing. Paper Mario, which I literally only played for the first time, a few weeks ago. And Adventures of Tom Sawyer for the NES. 1989. I totally remember playing that. I had an NES for 1 year at that point. And yeah, talk about terrible games, man. There it is.
Well, see, that's kind of where I am with Sonic Heroes, which was 2004. That would have been, I had just had the GameCube for like a couple months, and Sonic Heroes, notoriously like okay, like notoriously just kind of a mid game, whereas the other ones around it are kind of, at least nostalgically very good. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm enjoying going back in time and remembering all these. Yeah, Sonic Heroes was Pog, says Bleach. It was definitely something. I remember enjoying it well enough, but not a whole bunch. Movies kind of niche this week or today in history. Back in 2015 was Jupiter Ascending, which I think was the Channing Tatum, Mila Kunis sci-fi book adaptation that I never watched, did not care at all, but I seem to recall it being critically panned.
A futuristic Magic Mike. It was weird.
Oh no. Yeah, I heard it was pretty rough. Coraline came out in 2009, which I grew up reading the Coraline book, and I remember I was a ninth grader. I would have been a ninth grader, and so I was like, it's not going to be as good as the book, so I'm not even going to see the movie. And so I didn't see the movie until years later, and learned that it was actually a really good movie. It was a really good adaptation. But I was trying to be angsty. Same year, on this same day, another really niche project that you may or may not remember is Push, which was felt very much like a much better movie was done later in Taken with James McAvoy. But if you remember Push, it was like a weird sci-fi, strange, movie that was really before its time. That probably would have been better if it had been maybe made a little later. You liked Push, says H-Man. It's definitely niche. Yep, it is Dakota Fanning. And it was one of those random movies that never really went anywhere and was never talked about again, except now on Twig. And that's why you should be here, because we're talking about these random things as we go back through history. So there you go. That has been your At This Point in History. See, now I don't know if that comes through my microphone. Does that come through my microphone in Discord, or do I just sound like a dork?
It's not coming through in Discord, so it's hilarious.
Now you know what I sound like. You know exactly what I sound like whenever I'm not having the voice mod turned on. That's very funny.
Yeah, at first I thought it's not working, but then I remembered I have the Twitch muted, so I don't hear it delayed. Yep. And I was like, oh wait, it must not be coming through, or else you're just totally trying to sound like a dork.
Nope. Just imagine it's way too dank. Just imagine Leash is just needing to share that way too dank because it is just excessively loud. Okay, with that, our upcoming releases for the week as we close up the show. Games, not too many coming out this week, but a pretty big title coming out. We have tomorrow an indie, strange, like body horror that people may or may not enjoy called Birth. That's going to be kind of a puzzler, but about like organs and assembling organs. Very strange game, but I'm into the niche, stuff like that. So I'll probably at least give it a try or put it on the backlog and see how it does in review scores. And then, of course, on the 10th is Hogwarts Legacy, which I've already seen a bunch of reviewers are dropping their reviews today. Apparently, Miss Mika, I know Sneaky Pigs dropped earlier, is playing it already, so maybe has like a little advanced copy. Maybe they're starting to get it out to streamers and see how it goes there. Other people will be getting their release on the 10th. We says Dark and Darker patch out today. There's lots of things coming out. Oh, if you haven't pre-ordered, you can play it tomorrow. Okay, so Hogwarts Legacy is really changing up the release schedule. I have it down as the 10th. I guess If you want it now, buy it now, and maybe you'll get to play it a little earlier. Movies, there's not much coming out this week in the movie scene, but there is kind of a weird independent movie coming out in VR from Eli Roth, who's going to be doing Eli Roth's Be Mine, a VR Valentine's Day slasher. So if you're into the kind of campy horror and wanting to experience it in virtual reality, then you can experience another Eli Roth tale in that way. And then a TV show that is dropping on the 9th on Netflix that looks kind of nerdy. I don't know if it'll be good or not, but from what I've heard, it's okay. And that is My Dad, the Bounty Hunter. Follows the very much like CalArts style TV show and should be fun enough to see. Bleach says wait. So what are we waiting for? I don't know. We're going to find out. Where's the Netflix password sharing drama? Oh, you're right. I didn't even think about that. We should go over that. But I don't have it in the doc, and so I didn't read it. But apparently Netflix is wanting to tighten down on password sharing and put out a document that did not work for anybody. It, of course, lit the internet aflame. And since then, they've had to walk it back considerably and change some of the things that were in that document. I think I foresee that we will see something in, once they're able to actually figure out how to do it properly. But yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna, when I see things like this, all I can think about is, and then watch them walk it back, is they put out the most inflammatory version of what they want to have happen and see how far it can go. And then they'll pull it back and go just under what they think they can get away with. So these are calculated, y'all. They put this stuff out here to get the temperature and know how far they can go without burning down their property. But I have no doubt that this was, if they could have gotten away with it, they would have. But since they're not, they know what they're doing. And every time I see something like this, even with the D&D stuff with their OGL, right? And I think that's what, they knew what they were doing. Now, in the end, they really took it in the teeth. So I don't think they anticipated exactly the kind of kickback they were going to get. But again, I think that when you see corporations do this, they know that they're just doing it to get the temperature, and they're going to use that information moving forward.
Totally agree. I think that is a very fair statement. And I think that it is. We need to understand that this is marketing, and that even bad marketing is still, or not even bad marketing, even bad news is still good marketing. And they want your eyeballs, and they want you to know that they exist, and they want you to know that they made people upset. I'm interested to see in the chat, we've got kind of all three spectrums. Bleach has never really cared for Netflix. We all know that. H-Man says, I will cancel, resubscribe for the season of Stranger Things, and then cancel again. And then I will never cancel. I think that Netflix still does anime better than just about anybody, and I'll stick with them because they give me the anime that I want to watch. And my backlog is still so dense on Netflix that I have no reason to get rid of it. And so I don't know. I think that I agree that the password sharing thing was probably a bit more heavy-handed than they need to, but I'm just fine with Netflix. I think that it's run like a corporation, and so many others are. And if I'm going to be upset with every corporation for running like a corporation, then I'm going to get tired. But I do agree that,
exactly.
I do agree this went too far, and I'm glad they're walking it back. But I think that at the same time, I think we'll see something different. I think they'll do something. They'll figure out a way to make it happen and make it work and make the line get out of the red again, because they want to keep going forward. So intriguing to see where we're going to go from there. Do you pay for your Netflix? I do, and I always have. I never did the sharing thing, and that's not just me being a goody two-shoes. My parents never liked Netflix, and now here we are. Another thing we're adding to the show is Meme of the Week. So this is our Meme of the Week from our Memes and Goofs channel. It actually is featuring Stained and Perry this week.
I saw that.
Yep. So this is our Meme of the Week for this week. Stained said, I just heard this statement for the first time. 2 pregnant women boxing is like 2 babies having a mech fight. Can we get this movie? Perry, I've not heard this response. I had heard the 2 pregnant women fighting is like a mech fight, but Perry brought it from the visionary mind of Hideo Kojima. And all I can think about is that little baby giving the thumbs up in the throat. And I was like, that's hilarious. That is the funniest thing I've ever heard. So that's our Meme of the Week. Chats in the clap for our Meme of the Week. You're doing more of those memes over in our Memes and Goofs section. If you've not joined the Discord, what better time than right now? !Discord. And doubling down on this, since we missed the Netflix thing, please submit your news, because assume that we don't know anything. Assume that I have had my head in the sand and missed one of the biggest news pieces of the past week. Submit news as you see it and you appreciate it and you like it. You can do that on our Twitch channel anytime by hitting !Twig in the chat, or by going to bit.ly/DearTwig, DEAR as in like deer of a letter, not deer as in the animal. Dear
Every
Twig.
time you say Dear Twig, I think of antler.
Yeah. It is. I didn't think that through, but Twig wasn't available on Bitly and Dear Twig was. So if you want to submit your news there, be sure to do that. A big thank you to Stained. Stained, if you want to give a quick shout out for any of your projects that you're working on before we wrap this one up.
Yeah, I recently started releasing my sermons on podcast, the Go Be Jesus podcast. So you can find that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And yeah, or you can go check out my blog at stainedglassrebel.com.
Awesome. And if you're interested in being featured on the show or being one of our level 2 members to join, the first thing to do is to become a level 2 member. You can do that at any point in time, ! LVL2 in our chat, or it might even be bit.ly/level 2. I'm not sure. But you can find all that information on our Discord. We would love to have you in level 2. And then once you join that, there'll be a place to react and join Twig and all. Currently, we don't have a sign up because we don't have enough people that are on the team yet. And so it's just now is the time. If you want to get in, it's pretty much open season. And we'll let just about anybody in to join Twig and to hop on the show with us. So love to see that happen and love to have more level 2 people featured in the upcoming weeks here. And with that, we're going to wrap up the show with our 3 things that we believe to be true about every single one of you out there. And that is that number 1 will be that God loves you, like really, really loves you. Number 2, we love you. We want community with you. That's what we're doing here on Twitch, YouTube, and Discord. Number 3, we believe that you, yes, you matter. You are a person of sacred worth. The world is a better. I got so distracted by the you matters and you matter. The world is a better place because you are in it, folks. With that, until the next time that I see ya,